it's Brenda. Today I'm going to talk about how I start my enteral nutrition through my feeding tube. You may also hear me refer to it as starting a feed. But first, a quick note. I am not a medical professional and this is not a tutorial. I'm simply showing all of you how I get my nutrition started through my feeding tube. If you have a feeding tube and you have questions, please contact your doctor. And lastly, none of the items that I show you today are sponsored. So let's get started. When I hook up my feed, I use one of two pumps. I have the Kangaroo Joey, and underneath here is where the line is hooked up. And this is the Kangaroo Joey feed set, and this is the feed set with 2 bags. Or I use the Kangaroo Connect, and this is the Kangaroo Connect feed set. It only uses 1 bag. Today I'm going to talk about the Kangaroo Joey. I'll talk about the Kangaroo Connect in another video. The Kangaroo Joey is the first hydrating and ambulatory pump. It offers freedom and mobility to its patients using a backpack. Next, I need to choose the correct formula. I have 3 formulas that have been prescribed to me. My medical supply company uses Nestle Health Science formulas. The formula I use depends upon my weight and whether I need to gain, lose, or maintain. I'm currently on a 1,500 calorie per day diet and on 24-hour feeds, so my pump is running day and night. The first formula that I have is Nutrin. This is Nutrin 1.0. It's 250 milliliters. The 1.0 means that it's 1 calorie per 1 milliliter. So this carton is 250 calories. The next formula that I have is IsoSource 1.5. This carton is still 250 milliliters, but it's 1.5 calories per 1 milliliter. So this carton is 375 calories. The third formula that I have is Nutrin 2.0. It's still 250 milliliters, but this is 2 calories per 1 milliliter, so as you guessed, it's 500 calories for this 1 carton. The rate I program into my pump and the amount of cartons I do in 24 hours depends upon my oral intake also. So, for instance, if I eat a salad that's 250 calories and I'm currently at my goal weight, I would be able to use the Nutrin 1.0 that day. But since I had a salad that's 250 calories, I would be able to subtract 1 carton from my daily formula requirement. Another example is if I had no oral intake at all and I just needed to meet my formula requirement of 1,500 calories per day, I would use my Nutrin 1.0 and I would need 6 cartons. In order to do 1,500 milliliters in a 24-hour period, my pump would have to run at 62 milliliters per hour in order to give me my 1,500 calories. So now that you have all the background information, we're ready to start hooking up my feed. So I have my IV pole here. I have the clamp for my Joey pump. I have some sterile water for the flush bag. Of course, I have my Joey pump. I have the set that I need that connects to the Joey Pump. And I'm going to be putting in 2 of the Nutrin 1.0 formulas. The first thing we're going to get is the Joey Pump set. We'll open this up. Now with the Joey, you have a formula bag and a flush bag. And you can see that the blue says flush and hydration bag, and the purple says enteral feeding bag. So I'm gonna hang the flush bag up there just for a moment. And I'm going to get one of my Nutrin 1.0 formulas. They need to be shaken up really good. And then you just pop open the tab and dump the formula into your feed bag. I'm going to get the other Nutrin 1.0 formula. Open up the tab. Also dump this one into my feed bag. And I usually get some of the air out of it. You don't have to, but I do. And then I seal the cap. Now there's actually a little kind of clip right here, so I can seal this down in that clip to keep it shut. And now I've got the feed part done. Now my actual feeding tube Mickey button can only handle distilled or sterile water. Using tap water can actually break down the material that my feeding tube is made from. So I have sterile water here, and I'm just going to dump a bunch in the hydration and flush bag. Set that aside. I'm going to get some of the air out of that and again seal it. And again, there's a little tab here so that I can go ahead and seal this in the little tab. And now we have the flush and hydration part done. Hang that on the IV pole. Now I'm going to get the Joey and connect it to the Joey Pump clamp. This little metal piece back here hooks right into the front of this. And then this little lever back here flips backwards. Make sure it's tight enough to hold the pump. Okay, now we can grab the administration set line. And there's just a little tag on here to hold the line together. It's not needed, you can rip it off. Kind of straighten out the line a little bit. This little end here with the cap on is the end that's actually going to go into my feeding tube extension set. But a lot of times the purple end and the cap here is super loose. I've actually had it fall off before and I had formula running all over the place. It was a disaster. So I always double check that and tighten it. And then I'm going to hang that just over here for a moment. And now this line right here, you can see that there is a little kind of notch plastic piece that's up there. And then some tubing in the middle. And then a little circle piece there. This is the actual area or spot in the tubing that hooks into the top of the pump here, and I will try and show you a close-up of how I do that. Okay, now we're actually ready to hook up that special little portion of the line into the pump. So here is that little clip area, the little line portion, and the little circular piece. So this little clip, you can see this little picture, 1 down here, 2 it wraps around, and 3 the little circular piece goes over here and clicks. So we're going to take this plastic piece here and it pushes into there. This line stretches around and that hooks into there. Then we can take the rest of our line and kind of pull it through here so it hangs down, and we can close the top and get ready to program our pump. Okay, now we're actually to the point of turning on and programming the pump. So I am going to hit the power button right here. Okay, and you can see that the screen over here has prime pump, adjust feed, adjust flush. We have more down here. Up here we have your feed rate. This is the actual milliliters fed, so as your feed is running, it'll tell you how much feed you've had. It flips back and forth between fed and flush. So it actually tells you how much formula you've had and how much of the water you've had. This is your flush, your milliliters, and it's going to, you can set actually how many milliliters you want, and this says every how many hours. So you can say I want 40 milliliters flushed every 4 hours. So, okay, we're actually ready to start programming. So the first thing we're going to do is hit adjust feed. The next thing we're going to do is adjust our rate right up on top here. The rate that I'm going to put it at just for this video, we'll just go with, let's go with 35. So we'll hit this button. You can see the arrow that goes depending on what you want to change. So we'll do 30, which was that button. Of course, this one goes down to over here, so we'll change that to a 5. Okay, now that we have that done, you can see that enter is up here, so we're going to go ahead and push that. The next thing that's in line is feed, and it says VTBD. VTBD means volume to be delivered. So this is the total bag, the total amount of feed that is in your bag that is going to be delivered. So we'll go ahead and hit that so we can set that. Now, on the actual formula, they are not 100% correct in their labeling. It says 250 milliliters. Or 8.45 fluid ounces. Well, 8.45 fluid ounces is not exactly 250 milliliters. 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. 2 of these would actually come to 507 milliliters because one of these is actually 253.5 milliliters. So 253.5 and 253.5 is 507. So the volume to be delivered is actually 507. Make it to 5, and this last line here to 7. And then we're going to hit enter. Now we have actually gotten our feed rate done. So we have 35 milliliters per hour for a grand total of 507 milliliters. So we're done at this point, so we'll go ahead and hit done. Now we need to adjust the flush, which is next in line. So first is the flush volume. This is how much we want it to flush each time. So we'll select that, and let's do 40 milliliters, which is a little bit over an ounce. So we'll go to here, and the zero's already there, so we've got 40 milliliters. So now we can hit enter. Next, it says flush interval. So they're asking how many hours or how much time in between the flush volumes. So we'll go ahead and set our flush interval. And this is in hours, so let's go ahead and do every 4 hours, which is actually the requirement for a feeding tube. You're supposed to flush your feeding tube every 4 hours in order to prevent clogs. So now that we have that set, let's go ahead and hit enter. Okay, now that we have the flush volume set and the flush interval set, you can see that we have a feed rate of 35 milliliters per hour for a total of 507 milliliters. And we are going to flush 40 milliliters every 4 hours. So now that we're done with the flush portion, we can hit done. The next thing that we want to do is prime the pump. So now we're going to do the last option, and we need to prime the pump. If I just went ahead and hit run, well, hooked up to myself and then hit run, all of the air that is in both of these lines would go into my J-tube, into my small intestine. I do my feeds through my J-tube in case I have nausea during my feed. My G-tube goes into my stomach. My J-tube goes into my small intestine, so when I'm feeding during my J-tube, if I were to get nauseous and potentially vomit, I wouldn't be throwing up all of the feed that I just did. So now we're ready to prime the pump and get all of the air out of the line. First, the pump is going to pull from the water to get all of the air out of the line with the water. Once it gets so far, it's going to switch over and start pulling the feed to get all the air out of that line. And then it is going to continuously run. Here we go. Prime the pump. Make sure we have our end here. There is a cap on the end. Warning, if you forget to take the cap off, the air in the line will build up pressure and it will shoot the cap across your living room. So pull off the cap. And make sure that you have a trash can or something nearby. I'm actually just going to use the carton of formula so that as we're priming the pump, when it gets to the end, I can make sure that it's not dripping all over the floor. So we'll actually hold that there and we'll hit prime pump. And now it wants to know if you can auto prime. And it will only auto prime so far. It won't go all the way to the end. So we'll hit auto prime. So it's pulling from the water. Now it's going to switch over to the formula. And you'll actually see the formula coming around. Okay, so you can see that it stopped with just a little bit to go. So now we're actually going to, since this is feed right here, we're actually going to hold to prime feed to get it all the way to the end so that I'm not having all the air in the line. So we're going to hold to prime feed until it starts coming out of the end. Okay, now that it comes out of the end, we know that there's no air in the line right now. So now that we're done priming, we can hit done. And now we're actually ready to hook up our feed and hit run. Okay, let's go ahead and hook up. So here is the extension set that goes to my J-tube in my Mickey button. And this one is the extension set that goes to my G-tube of my Mickey button. I run my feeds through my J-tube, as I said before, so that if I get nauseous and vomit from my chemotherapy, I'm not going to lose any of the formula. Running through my J-tube has been helping me to maintain my weight. So let's just go ahead and open up my extension set. And this little connector just goes right inside. Make sure it's tight. I've had it pull out before, and when I woke up I was covered in formula. So make sure it's tight. Again, I always double check this purple end with the white connector. I always double check that, make sure that's tight. Make sure the med port on my J-tube extension set is closed as well. I've forgotten to close that too and had formula pouring out of the med port. Next, you need to make sure that you unclamp it and open it up. Otherwise, the pump will alarm. So now we are unclamped. We are hooked up to the J-tube. We've double checked everything. So now it's time to just go to our pump and hit run. And you can see that there's a little drip that is going down here. And that just lets me know that the pump is actually running. If at any time I need to disconnect for any reason, I can hit the hold button over here and I can flush if I need to, so that the formula that's in my extension set doesn't harden inside the line. So I can flush it and then I can disconnect. So it does give you the option to go ahead and flush at any time if you need to, but otherwise that's about all it takes to hook up my feed using my Joey pump.